lots, or the land of the vine maples. This is a quote from Chief Seattle in 1854. Quote, every part of the soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished.
Okay, with that, would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next thing on our agenda is to review and approve the agenda. We have one addition, which is we will have an executive session. Let's make this in the second floor conference room, please. It'll be for 10 minutes and it's regarding the performance of a public employee, RCW 42.30.1101G. There will be no decision taken, so we will finish our meeting and adjourn out of the executive session. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve tonight's agenda as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Newell.
No, aye.
Lived aye.
Stern, aye.
McVey, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Thank you, council. Now we're moving on to public comment. If you have comments for the council, please step to the podium. You have 3 minutes and state your name for the record.
Never thought I'd get to be this old, you know? Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Bill Austin. I'm a resident of Poulsbo. And I'm here because I have nothing else to do tonight. Anyway, I have reason to believe that quite possibly, maybe, someday, soon, 3rd Avenue may be upgraded. There has also been some talk about improving the infrastructure on Front Street downtown. If and when this happens, I am suggesting that quite possibly, maybe, the street could be made into a one-way street. And it would be nice if raised crosswalks were installed also. I also think it would be nice if the street was turned into a more serpentine shape with pockets of diagonal parking both sides, if possible. And by the way, I remember when Seattle streets were made that one way back in the 60s. I believe the fire department would have a lot to say about what I'm just suggesting. We need 20 feet, I guess, for those guys. But maybe if Josh is here, we'll design it the way we want it. Anyway, and by the way, I remember, yes, I believe, yes, and I just said that. Speaking of parking, once upon a time, oh, I just lost it all. Bear with me. Speaking of parking, once upon a time, a long time ago, when we thought we were going to build a city hall on the King Olaf parking lot, I borrowed a measuring wheel and from ADA Engineering and measured the distance from Sunset Street to King Olaf parking lot, and the length is 1,000 feet. I had already got approval from the fire department to turn that portion of Front Street one way, temporarily, whilst we built the new town hall. The idea was to vacate King Olaf and use Front Street by adding 100 or so diagonal parking spots, which we could have. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe you could think about turning that portion of the Front Street into one way, coming from the north for extra parking permanently. And finally, Madam Mayor, I don't know what I was going to say now, but that's the end of my message. But what I would like to say is I know that you did look at getting the USPS, the post office there, and it failed. But I must say I congratulate you in trying. Maybe you could try one more time. You know, you've pulled out miracles before, I believe.
How about that?
Hopefully the new mayor could do this, but anyway, whoever it's gonna be, I don't know. Jeez.
Mhm.
So, thank you, Mayor. The red light is on, which means I have to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Austin.
And you've done a fine job, by the way, in my book. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, comments from citizens.
I've got to have that. Thank you, Mike.
On behalf of Bill, I think we need to get those easy lift chairs for some of the elders down here. You know, we're all gonna live to be 100 years old. All right, well, start me up. Mike Regis, City of Poulsbo resident. Council members, I'm slowly feeding you some of the good secret shadowy stories of the town of Poulsbo. And my theme this year is going to be the port. Now, understand that whoever's going to be here exactly 1 year from now, March 12th, actually the 13th. The 13th, 1951, the city allowed a port district to be formed. And this year, it's the 74th year, which means that you are, whoever's going to be on the council next year, next March, is on the committee to prepare for that coming together party between the city and the port, where they share stories about their conjoining relationship on how they operate, the perception of where they really are on the edge of the sea. And you all got something from the rising sea issue, and you're going to get little more details. I just realized you can't absorb it all at once. It'll be too much to chew, and we're terribly distracted as it is today. We're very distracted, but we need to pay attention who we are in the Pacific Northwest. We're the last corner they're going to come and bother us, so we can still go on and deal with our own local issues. If you're running for office, make a point to go down and say hi to the port commissioners and the 10 residents that live down there that will vote, because none of them know who you are. This is a fact. You're not known. You're known among yourself, and that's about it. But beyond that, it's nothing more. So please get out there and interact, because we're still going to be talking about this all year. Top of the green to you.
Public comment. Okay, I'm not seeing any more public comments. Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. So we are going to move on to mayor's reports and council comments. Mr. Newell, how are you this evening?
I guess we are getting ready for St. Patrick's Day. It is the time when we celebrate the flowers coming up. So, you know, all is good. All's good. Lots to be proud of here.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. How about you, Britt?
I don't have any comments right now.
Mr. Stern?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank my colleagues for their patience and forbearance. My absence from last week, I know that caused some difficulty. The trip to Spokane to represent Olympic College was intense and really couldn't be avoided. But I just want to acknowledge and thank you all for your patience very much. I'm here tonight. I'm supposed to be in Olympia already tonight. I'm not, because I wasn't going to miss 2 meetings in a row. So instead, I'll make up for it with a 6 a.m. travel in the morning. That's it. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience.
Thank you. Mr. McVey?
Thanks, Mayor. We had a joint meeting of City Council and our Planning Commission in these chambers last night, and I just want to commend our planning staff, particularly Director Heather Wright and Nicole Coleman, Tiffany Simmons, and the rest of our planners, who Carla Boughton, our former planning director, who's working for us on a contract basis. Carla has done a lot of the work on the comp plan, as have the whole staff. And we're in the, I think as Heather described it last night, we're in the, what was it, the 23rd mile of a 26-mile run. Every 10 years, we update the comprehensive plan for the city of Poulsbo. That's an important process and exercise. And we are getting close to being done. We will have a couple of public hearings, one at Planning Commission, one at City Council before it's wrapped up. But I would encourage any of our citizens who have not yet focused in on our comprehensive plan, you can go to the city website and read about it. But it was a productive meeting, and just want to thank the Planning Commission and our planning staff for all their good work on it. Look forward to our public hearings and approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eckert.
Yes, and yeah, and I already passed my apologies to our planning department. I wasn't able to make it last night. I wasn't feeling very well. I'm still fighting the cold, but I'm here tonight. Bill left, so I was gonna say some stuff to response, but I'm sure he'll watch, so he'll see it. But we actually have, for those that don't know, we have a couple studies going on that are looking at the entirety of downtown and making third one way, front the other way, changing in and out of Anderson. Like, that's all being looked at, and with hopes of adding spaces, fixing some of the flow issues that we have, and all combined with the rebuilding of Third into an actual street and Front Street with the utility updates and all that need. So that's all being done. I have 3 studies. Looking at Josh. Yeah, 3 different studies going on right now that are all combining together into one big effort. So Bill, when you watch this, we thank you, and we're already on it. So, because that's a big deal. And then I know Doug talked about this a little briefly last week, but Doug, Pam, and I did go to the Essential Elected Forum, Officials Forum that AWC held down in Tacoma. It was we had questioned. I had even emailed Rhiannon when it came out saying, do I need to go to this? Because it sounded like a repeat, but it was intended to be, as they put it, kind of new official 2.0, like your sophomore class. So after you've been there a year and you took all that training right after you get elected and you don't really know what it means, and then you had a year now to digest it and ask questions. So it was really interesting because we actually had some people in there that had been on their councils. I think the shortest was 2.5 weeks appointment, all the way up to some folks longer. So some really interesting stuff. I did meet one of the council members from Port Townsend. We had a good conversation about our supposed colluding on paid parking that we've been hearing about, because they're actually looking at it as well, and what they're doing, and some of the challenges and concerns they have. So it was good just getting with our colleagues from around the state and sharing the same, yeah, there it is, the same issues and concerns. And I do have something else, but I'm going to save it the council comment concerns section.
Thank you, Rick. I have a couple thank yous that I'd like to say. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the staff of the city of Poulsbo, the department heads. We have a city administrator who's been here for just a very short period of time. And everybody is working so collaboratively and so well together. It's like hand in glove. Everything is going very, very smoothly. I want to thank you, Rob, and all the department heads for your flexibility as we move forward. It's working brilliantly. And I feel like 1,000 pounds has been lifted off my shoulders, if you want to know the truth. I'm feeling really good. So just thank you for all of that. And the second thing is the daffodils are blooming. And we started planting daffodils, was it 12 years ago? I mean, I'm trying to think back through it's over a decade ago. We started planting daffodils. We have Daffodil Day, and where we planted literally thousands of daffodil bulbs in this town. And every March they come up and I think, oh, I'm so glad we did that, because kind of when we plant them, it's the novelty is worn off at this point. When we plant them, okay, it's like, okay, let's go plant them. But I mean, when they come up and they bloom, it's in March, it makes me smile, and it makes a lot of other people smile too. So I want to say thank you to all the volunteers, and there's been hundreds of volunteers over the last decade that have planted daffodils for Poulsbo. So those are my 2 thank yous tonight. Okay, so we're going to move on to board commissions and outside agency reports. Anybody got any board commissions and outside agency reports? I only have one real short one. There's the Puget Sound Regional Council is really watching carefully all the federal activity. And we are getting direct feeds in about the various actions that are being taken at the federal government. And it's nerve wracking. But as I said to my fellow people in local government, the last time I was physically in there, is one of the things that local government is, it's adaptable. You know, that's our strength, is we are adaptable. And it's going about as well as it could be going, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're watching it all very carefully. And if things come up, we'll certainly let everybody know. And that's about the only report I have. Go ahead, Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, I don't have a report, but I have a question. We had on our tentatively planned for next Friday, the 21st, our next ad hoc with Bainbridge Island, but I haven't seen anything since we discussed that. I've been going, but I'm not technically on that. It's Doug Tabor, and I have an appointment. So if we're doing that, we need to make sure Doug is aware and that we actually plan that. So, because I will not be attending unless.
Yeah, it's on my calendar.
Yeah, so
too.
we talked about it, but I don't know that anything official was put out.
Yeah.
So,
We'll make sure, we'll check
Yeah.
into it and let you know, Rick.
if Doug can't make it or if anyone else can't make it, let me know. It's just I just have to rearrange.
Thank you. With that, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the city council for reading and study and are considered to be routine, and it's items 7A through D. And I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Newell.
I just had one question with regards to what was in our blue package. Is this the social community service agreement? Is this an update from what was on the web?
What is this, Rhiannon?
That was an updated contract from Kim with correct numbers. What was originally in the packet was wrong, but what was sent via email on Tuesday is what's in your TIL folder. So that's what's being approved tonight.
Okay.
Yes, currently on the web as well.
No.
No.
My only question.
Good question. No, thank you, Mr. Newell. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Mr. Newell.
Newell, aye.
Lived I.
Stern, aye.
McVey, aye.
Becker, aye.
Thank you, council. And now on to our business agenda, which is the 8th Avenue Culvert Replacement Grant Acceptance and Budget Amendment. And this is Rachel. How are you, Rachel?
Good evening, Council. I'm Rachel Bowen. I'm our Stormwater Permit Coordinator. I'm here to talk about the 8th Avenue Culvert Replacement Project, Grant Acceptance and Budget Amendment. So a little background about this project. The 8th Avenue Culvert, it's an aging, undersized culvert that restricts fish passage on South Fork Dogfish Creek. So this is near the intersection with Iverson. The project's been on our stormwater CIP list for a long time to have it replaced with a fish-friendly design. We applied for funds to the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board back in 2022. That's with the Recreation and Conservation Office. And they recently reached out to us to ask if we would like to take on design of the project. So the total design cost for the grant is $280,000. $238,000 of that will be Fish Barrier Removal Board grant funds, and $42,000 of that will be city match. And we currently have $100,000 programmed into the stormwater CIP for this year. So that is where the grant match will come from. We're hoping to have 90% design for that finished in first quarter of next year. And that's what I have for you. I can answer any questions about the project, but I also have a recommended action up here to approve the grant agreement and move the budget amendment forward.
Okay, we have Mr. Newell and then Mr. McVey and then Mr. Eckert.
I know there's been some discussion about realignment of Eighth Avenue in that general vicinity. Could we comment on where we're at in that process and how this helps us get it there? I guess that's.
Certainly I can comment, and I think Charlie might have some comments as well. We have an Eighth Avenue realignment project, which is to look at the long-term options for Eighth Avenue. And that's an independent project from the culvert project deliberately because of the funding sources and the timing. So we're looking at an upgrade to the culvert as a specific project with planning for the realignment project, but not as a combined project, if that's helpful.
So I'll assume that you do not anticipate this tying our hands or committing to us taking one of the options off for Eighth Avenue realignment.
That's correct, because
that's
no
all.
matter what happens, we'll
We have
still
to do
need to
this.
have a culvert.
No matter what happens, we'll have to do this, so. Okay, so we have Mr. McVey and then Mr. Eckert.
Thanks, Mayor. Rachel, can you go back to the previous slide where you talked about the design costs? There we go. So total design cost $280,000. I didn't see anything in here that talks about the construction costs. Are you including the construction costs in the design costs or what?
My
Can you
fault.
clarify that for me?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Apologies for not making that clear. This is just design only. So this project cost is just for design. The plan is that if we will move forward with construction, we apply for further grant funds after this.
Okay, so at this stage, we don't know how much construction will cost and if we will receive grant funding dedicated for that. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Diane, Josh, is this typical that we do it this way?
What's interesting is we thought we were not successful at getting this grant, and it was a bit of a bird of paradise that came to us a year and a half later. So we don't currently have the construction in our capital program in a near-term year. So we anticipate it would be something we would pursue after that. We'd have to add it to the CIP. So we thought we had already lost on this grant, and it came back to life.
Okay, I appreciate that helpful background.
It's very serendipitous.
What's that?
It's serendipitous.
Yeah, and I'm certainly aware of the need for this culvert down there for fish as well as for past flooding issues we've had. So I'm not questioning the need for it. It just it seemed to be it was sort of a glaring hole I felt that I needed to inquire about. Thank you.
Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, so my questions were the same as Doug, so I'm good.
To me, this is really exciting because, you know, we spent a lot of money putting that gigantic box culvert underneath 305. So this will actually allow to figure out how we can actually get fish up past 305 into the watershed. And it's a big deal. So I think we're really lucky that we got this money. So good work, good work. Okay, any other questions?
I'm happy to make a motion. Rachel, if you want to advance that slide, please. Thank you. Move to approve the grant agreement from RCO in the amount of $238,000 and approve budget amendment number 25-01-03 in the amount of $238,000 for the 8th Avenue Culvert Design Project and authorize the mayor to sign the grant agreement on behalf of the city.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? It's for the fish. Okay, seeing none.
No,
Just-
I.
Die.
Stern eye.
McVey, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Thank you, council. And that is our only business agenda. I don't think we need a break. Do you want to just move on down for the workshop and let's just keep going? So give us 2 minutes to get down to the tables. So, let's keep moving this on. We're into our workshop process at this point, and the first thing on our agenda is the city administrator and department head comments, and I'm going to whirl around here. Go
Good
ahead, Rob.
evening, Madam Mayor and council members, and happy 12th of March. It's not the Ides of March, so it's good from that perspective. It was interesting when we were talking earlier about the 10-year periodic update for the comprehensive plan. And I just had a flashback that it used to be 8 years, which it took years to lobby to actually make that change in state law because it didn't make sense. It seemed like every time you were planning, you never had the opportunity to actually implement and then measure and to know whether or not you were bending the curve at all. So being able to have a greater syncing with the the census, and basically having better data so that we could actually do that planning, I think is really helpful. Just a few things quickly, just to let you know that we are actively looking at space in City Hall and having conversations about how we can possibly better facilitate different functioning. And hopefully part of that will be the reintegration of the police department and being able to move our detectives over from Park and Rec. We'll see how that plays out over in the next few weeks, but just wanted to give you a heads up about that. Also, one change in terms of the organizational chart, Dan Skumaker, who is our emergency management coordinator and had been reporting to Diane, I just worked with the mayor and decided that actually having Dan as a direct report, I think is important in terms of the role of emergency management and how we integrate it into the organization overall. So that change has been made. Also, as of tomorrow, I think I'll have had the opportunity to meet with 103 of our staffers and or council members and management team, either as individuals or small groups. And so tomorrow I have another 6 public works staff at 7 a.m., which will be great. Those conversations have been wonderful. And I look forward to kind of compiling everything into a cohesive report to share in the future. Part of that will spur off a ride along tomorrow with Officer Melton. So I'll be on the road in one of our police vehicles for a few hours. And in addition to that, ride-alongs are not just for the police department. I will be doing a ride-along with the residential solid waste pickup. And then we'll also do one with commercial down the road to get a better sense of those operations. I'm going in the garbage truck. That's right. And then just as a reminder that we have interviews, we received 3 applications for consideration by the mayor and ultimately affirmation by the council for our next municipal court judge. Those interviews will take place on Tuesday, the 25th. And just as a reminder, the celebration for Judge Holman is on the 27th. And so if council members are planning to attend that, it would be good to make sure that Rhiannon knows so that we can notify or announce quorum for that. And with that, yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I guess I need to speak into this. Sort of my back to you. I apologize. Rob.
That's
So
okay.
the question with respect to the city administrator's remarks about space in the city hall
Mhm.
and what we're doing around that. I note, and I think we all got a copy this week from the Historical Society, that they've hired a new executive director. Linda will be working there. So I, as the mayor knows, had a fairly informal conversation with the Historical Society board twice last year about their occupancy on the second floor and what might be to their advantage. We've looked at capacity so that the city at the right time, that's cooperative for the Historical Society. I wonder if you looked into that at all or have that in mind, or otherwise with the new executive director, there might be some movement.
Yes, I've already met with one of the board members and I met yesterday with the new executive director. So those conversations are unfolding.
And it is in the budget. Oh.
More to come.
Any other questions for Rob?
Go ahead, Diane.
I just have a couple of items to mention. Just to tag on what Rob said about emergency management, I had the honor of working with Dan over the last several months. And I want to just say how much Dan has accomplished in the short time that he's been here in terms of updating our emergency management plans, coordination with KEDA, outreach, and kicking off the training with a small group of people. Rob, I think is the winner of accomplishing the most classes in the short period of time, but I've finished 2, and I know that Mike Lund has finished 2, and the crew that works behind him have taken more emergency management training than they have in quite some time, so it's been really good. It makes sense for the city to have the emergency coordinator reporting directly to the city administrator to make decisions more efficient in the case that we do have an emergency we have to deal with. So that's good news. I feel like I'm out of the middle and I like that. We've had a couple of hires in our engineering and building department. We're in the final process of hiring a building inspector, and we have hired 2 techs, so engineering techs, an engineer 1 and an engineer tech, so we're fully staffed. I'd like for Josh to have the opportunity to introduce somebody to you today.
Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. I just wanted to welcome Donald Washburn to the team. He's one of our new engineering techs and has been here for a few weeks now. So he's doing great work and seems to be excited and keeps coming back. So we're happy to have him on the team. No, so if you want to.
Madam Mayor, very nice to meet you, council members. It's great to be here.
All right, thank you. And we do have
Could
one
he
more.
tell us a little bit about his background? Just
You
2 or
wanna-
3 highlights?
Sure, yeah.
Where'd you go to school? Where were you working before you joined us?
It's okay.
Certainly. Yeah, so I grew up right outside Silverdale, but spent a lot of time in Poulsbo growing up. My grandpa was an avid member of the Historical Society. One of my aunts was in public service, worked at the old city hall. I was telling Josh when I got hired, I have a photo of me in my Halloween costume in front of the steps of the old city hall. Spent every Halloween there and it was great and I loved it. But I went to school at OC, took engineering there, went to Peninsula College for some continued education and have kind of worked in the area and then ultimately saw an opportunity here and I took it. And it's been great so far. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, council. And just also as to further on what Diane was saying, we do have a new engineering tech that will be starting next week. So here in the few weeks coming, we'll be introducing Sherman to you guys as well. So thank you.
Super, welcome. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Rob and Diane, thank you for the work that's been done already with emergency management. And for, kind of bringing that on board the city. That was probably the other biggest topic I talked with folks about in Tacoma the other week was our addition of that. And, with everything that's happened in Hawaii and Georgia and North Carolina and California in the last year, it's a big topic. And as I said, when we discussed it budgetarily wise, it's the insurance, the thing you don't want to have to pay for, but by the time you need it, it's too late if you don't have it. So thank you for bringing that on board, keeping it going. And, again, it's, we don't want it, but we have to have it. So it's truly important.
Council member, I appreciate that. Sorry to jump in again, but I think you're right on point. It's about creating muscle memory. So regardless of the size of what happens, that we have the ability to sort of quickly activate and respond to the appropriate level that the incident requires.
I have wanted an emergency management for a long, long time, and we just now finally got one. There's one other position, like a part-time, a little more than a part-time, that I would love to have, and that's a information officer, public relations guy, okay, a person who could, remodel our website, have, really a consistent outreach publicly. We've just never gotten money, but it would sure be nice to have that position as well. So
Could
Anyway.
we convince Patty to go back to school for that?
we just need the money to pay for it. So, okay, Diana, that's it? Deb, go ahead.
Good evening. Just as we are beginning to assemble our 2020 financial statement, we just did receive notification from the Government Finance Officers Association that our 2023 report received the Certificate in Excellence and Achievement for putting out the report. And yes, thank you. And it's a team effort. We are unlike some other cities, and we incorporate everybody in the department plays a part in developing that statement because it's quite extensive with all of the moving it from the modified to the full accrual as well as the statistical tables. And so we are frantically working on getting the next one out, but I'm just wanted to let you guys know that if you see the public notice, that's what it's about. Thanks.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, honored guests. So first, what's coming around, and I'll pull it up on the screen here in just a moment, is we have set the date for the Play for All ribbon cutting. We are in ribbon cutting mode. We are ready to cut ribbons and open playgrounds. So just a reminder while I try to find the folder. 2 in 2 months, that's right. Thank you, Mayor. Let's see here, give me 1 second. We're gonna put on bingo. Then we're gonna hit this one. We're gonna hit that one, and you're all set. Okay, that's just for the audience so they also know. So this is gonna come around. We're gonna be sending out invites shortly. So if you can, please put this on your calendar, and it'll also come in an email. The other thing I would like to share is just as exciting, and this is a lot of fun since this photo was just taken on Monday. And this photo is one moment. Stop share. Try it again. Hang on. I got it. And we're doing good. Look at this, right? Sounds good. Is it going on? Okay. So a big thank you. I don't want to edit this image with AI. Why is that even? Get out of here. All right. So council and mayor, you may remember that you helped fund a full-time office clerk who also has some dedicated hours to helping our senior programs. This is Monday. This program has grown out of space. This is consistent. This is our senior fitness program. They're filling our parking lots. They are there. They are active. We've run out of space, and we're looking for other areas, other programs. We're in a really good spot. So I just want to circle back. This is a phenomenal program. So if you have a chance, I'd be happy to send an email so you know where these are if you just want to stop by and see it in action, or participate regardless of your age, since age is relative. Take a look. It's we're really quite pleased with this. I have other updates, but I see a question. Oh. Okay, I'm going to keep on moving then.
Hold on, Jeff. So with respect to the senior program, how do others who are seeing this for the first time make inquiry of joining, and what's involved in joining? Is there a cost and other parameter?
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Stern. Right now, we are working on updating our community senior newsletter and collaborating with community partners. And that updating is, do we have the right font size, the colors, is it easy, is it accessible, and doing so on a quarterly basis. That is being worked on weekly. If folks are interested, they can take a contact Parks and Recreation right now. And what I would fully expect is later this year, we're going to be moving that bar several times forward, working with our partners. So folks should reach out to Parks and Recreation. These are free or reduced programs. Other updates. The Parks Pollinator program kicked off last week. 20 members joined, and they're looking at planting locations, selection, and awareness campaign. Pearson Elementary kids are back, 28 of them, and they're really excited for this program. Poulsbo Kitty Hall is on March 28th. So if you like cats or kitties, please come to that. The next one is, I'm following up on Councilmember McVey's question from last council meeting about how long does it take for the washed out property to transfer. Should be a couple of months. I won't get into the details, but they expect it's going to be fairly quick. It has to go through a number of steps. And then I won't steal Public Works thunder because they have done a phenomenal job down at Oyster Plant Park, but I can share that we are now fully executed on the 50-year lease. Thank you all.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you for scheduling this on the weekend. It's a lot easier to get to, so thank you. I will be
welcome.
there.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we leave department head comments, I was hoping we could get an update on the last night's HDPA meeting that focused primarily on downtown parking. And since Heather is not here tonight, let's see if Denver Smythe from Western Red Brewing and the president of HDPA said he'd be happy to give us a quick update. Would that be
We're
appropriate?
co-opting you as staff.
Yeah.
Have a seat. Okay. Push the button.
I thought it would be helpful for council to get an update on the meeting. Thank you.
Okay,
Denver.
so I'm not as good at this as Heather by any means, but I met with Heather and Rob Gelder and Mike Perry and Sandy Colbeans, and we all sat and talked about what that option 3 that you guys will be considering looks like on your end. Part of the problems brought to us as HDPA with that was absolutely nobody knows exactly how many employees need what parking, where, and when. Rob and Heather put together a really nice survey that gives us the opportunity to, as much as people respond, get that from the businesses themselves. We've put out quite the effort. We put it in several different places, and we're getting a lot of feedback. Last night's meeting, we went over that. Heather showed all the things that are on that option 3 package. We had a fairly good response from the businesses. I think that identifying some of these problem spots up front has really helped. I know I made it quite clear that I will do what I can to get the businesses on board with this. We've all kind of taken we're all giving a little bit. And I think that last night's meeting, there were some good ideas thrown out that we might discuss in the future. But I think we're moving forward at a good pace to make that deadlines on that option 3. So.
I really like what you just said. We're all giving a little. And I think that that's a really good way to put it. Thank you, Denver. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other staff or co-opted staff? Okay.
Good evening, good evening, council. I have one real quick thing as Jeff touched on here. If I can find it. Now I gotta figure out how to share it. Man, and help. So as Jeff had mentioned, the railing is done. They just finished it up this week.
Oh my.
It looks phenomenal. The guys did a fantastic job. Yeah, it looks really good. If you get a chance, go down there, take a look, walk around. It's there. It's built for stout, so it's gonna be nice.
And for those
On the
yeah.
dock. I'm not sure if we got those yet. I've talked about them. So.
For those
I
in
haven't
the
forgot.
viewing audience, this is Oyster Plant Park, and they've been working on this for some time to getting it. The fencing looks just
Yeah,
terrific.
beautiful. They did a beautiful job.
Great
It
job.
was a lot more work than we had anticipated, but they did a great job. So that's all I have.
And we're so thankful for all the work your team is doing, Mike.
Oh, that's a place that people actually go down and visit. It's a
Yeah.
heavy trafficked area. It's a
No, it
good,
really
great
is.
thing.
Thanks, Mike. And tell the guys thanks. Okay, anybody else? Okay, now on to questions and concerns of the council. Questions and concerns. Anybody? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up. So Ed, you mentioned about last week's meeting. I had a real issue, just I want everyone to know, with us moving the vote on parking off of last week's meeting. I expressed it to the mayor. We specifically moved that up because folks weren't going to be here. You know, we moved it to a meeting that was actually canceled, that you and I weren't going to be at, and we canceled our trip to be there. Then when the vote on the first one didn't pass and we rescheduled. We had it scheduled, and then because of absences, we moved it again. That's not a precedent I'm comfortable with. We have not in the past, this body, or with the many, many years I've watched this body, rearranged agendas based on the absence of one or two council members. And I can give a very specific example. So when we discussed the new roadmap as part of the comp plan, Councilmember Livedall is the one that asked for that to be brought back to the council to be rediscussed. And that was brought back to the body and discussed while she was out on maternity leave. And so she didn't get a chance to discuss the very item she asked to be brought back. And the decision that night would have probably gone differently had she been here. So we set a precedent that we don't move things based on who's absent. And then we changed it on this parking issue. And so I'm putting out there, that is why I was absent last week. I did not come to the meeting because I was that unhappy about our decision to do that. So you'll notice that's also why the council member absence did not include my name. I did not ask to be excused for last week's meeting. It is not an excused absence. I did not want to be excused. I chose not to come to that meeting because I did not agree with that precedent. We have a choice to be here. We have obligations. We choose which ones to take and meet. I canceled a trip to be here when I thought it was important. If I didn't choose to cancel it, I would have missed the vote. That is the choices we make. And I wanted to be open, honest, and out there, but I understand why we did it, but I didn't agree with it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Eckert. Okay, any other council comments or concerns? Good.
Yeah, Mayor. Excuse me, given that we did delay the downtown parking discussion and discussion and potential vote on resolution 3 to next week, I think we are anticipating probably quite a few people to join us next week. And I would like to have a brief discussion about what is it staff is planning to present? What, if any, additional information or questions do council members need to make a decision next week? Because this issue has been going on long enough that it's gotten quite divisive within our community and our council. I do not want to drag it out any further. I would like to make a decision next week. So now is our opportunity, it seems to me, to let the mayor and staff know what additional information do we need. I can tell you that I requested, and I think Heather and Rob and perhaps others are working on it, since there are essentially 4 components to resolution 3: signage, employee parking, enforcement, paid parking by summer of 2026. Those are the 4 planks, if you will, of resolution 3 that we discussed previously, that we agreed to come back and have a vote on the 19th. So I have requested, could we please get cost estimates for each of those 4 items: signage, employee parking, enforcement, paid parking. Okay, because I think it's important that we consider it holistically. Okay, those 4 components. I'm anticipating that some folks may want to pull that apart. I'm not going to support that. I'm just going to tell you, but for that reason too, I think it's important that we look at it as a whole, holistically. So I think those are some things that Heather is working on. I know that she has been meeting furiously, along with Rob, with some folks who can help us with adding some additional employee parking. That would include First Lutheran Church. I'm not going to go into all the details of that. Apparently some of it was discussed last night at the HDPA meeting, but there are at least 3 other parking lots where we have opportunities to add employee parking. I believe that's going to be part of the discussion. So if anybody else could help fill me in, what else we're going to hear on downtown parking on the 19th, and then give my colleagues an opportunity to weigh in on any other information they need, I think we would all benefit from that. Thank you.
I can share the one thing I asked the mayor about, kind of along those lines, with enforcement. if we are going to rely on the police department for that, and that's one of the variables we don't have an answer on, but if we are gonna rely on them, in order to not see a decrease in service to the rest of the city, the rest of their function, I would anticipate that would require us going up to 3 officers on patrol at any given time. And what would the minimum manning of the department need to be in order to achieve 3 officers? So that was a number I asked for. So again, there's a number of assumptions in that statement, but in order to get to that, if those assumptions are true, what would that be? Because when we come to our mid-year carryover discussion and then our mid-year budget discussion, if we need to talk about adding officers, which I think we were probably going to discuss anyway, I'd like to know what that number is.
No, I think that's valid, but I think we need to look at the options for enforcement. There's one school of thought that says it's 24/7, every 2 hours we're scanning, but that isn't necessarily the model that's needed. There is a model of using the police department, but there's the model that Bainbridge Island uses. There's what Walker said, which was 22 weeks out of the year needs to be done. So there's a whole variety of things. We shouldn't be thinking we're locking into having to hire a police officer full-time, 7 days a week to be able to do this. Would be the far extreme. I mean, I think for most of us, the low-hanging fruit is the people that are overnight parking. Those are the easy ones, and then you wander in and there's a gradation of responses in that. So if we are going to, I don't want it to be, it's only the 200,000 or what you just described, Rick, could be, 3 or 4 more officers on board, which it's not realistic.
We had quite a conversation about what's going to be presented next week, and it is those 4 things that you mentioned, Gary. We don't have all the details yet, so I feel a little uncomfortable speaking to the specifics. We're going to do a guesstimate of budget for this because until we put an RFP out for some of the services, we won't know. I guess I'd like to turn to you guys and say, we're going to discuss those 4 things that Gary just said. Is there anything else that we should be discussing?
I think, at least from my viewpoint, that covers it. My only request from that standpoint is sometimes Heather's presentations aren't provided as a read ahead, and we see them first time up on the screen. It'd be nice to give us as much runway as possible so we can digest it and take a look at it so that we're not digesting it up on the screen.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing, when I read the original resolution, it was telling the mayor to direct the staff that we want to pursue those details.
Yeah.
That was the
And we're
goal
not-
of the resolution.
Yeah.
It wasn't to have the details at that moment.
And I want to be real honest with you. We will not have all the
Right.
details. There's no way that we can gather the specific
Right.
information.
So that was the
But we
point of
can-
passing it.
we can do general overviews of the concepts and what our expectations are regarding timing and cost.
Right, so it was, the resolution is to proceed with investigating all of these things. The reason I'm asking about the police is because by choosing to enforce now and not implementing paid parking, we have to recognize that we need to use the staff we have, which is police. And so if that's the case, again, I understand that I'm making assumptions, but I'm putting those assumptions in there and saying, I need to know if those assumptions all fall into place, what is the end result of that?
And what I'm saying
And so,
is
yeah.
we're going to give as much and be as transparent as we possibly can about those four things that
Right.
were discussed.
Yeah, so I'm not
but-
saying that I think we're going there. I'm just saying if the choose your own adventure takes us there, I'd like to know what that answer is.
Okay,
And that's as much as we can.
okay. Rob, do you have anything you want to add to that? Okay.
No, I think you covered it. I think that the point is it's really about establishing that policy direction because we don't know what we don't know. And we can only, it's going to take a fair amount of resources to suss all of that out. And we don't want to expend those resources until we have the green light.
And I want us to have our eyes open when we make the decision, not stumble into it.
You're remembering that, you guys are policy and budget, and we're implementation getting it done. And frankly, until we have a policy decision, we can do rough guesstimates on all of these pieces. And we're going to try to give you as much information as we can. We're trying to be totally transparent because it's not just being transparent with the city council. It's being transparent with all those guys out there.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to know what we're doing. Okay,
Well,
so-
and it's being good stewards of our resources too, Mayor.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the primary reasons why we had this touch point here at this time was for council to give staff and the mayor direction. Do we want staff to continue to spend dozens and dozens of hours on this? We've spent $150,000 in consulting fees on this project. Do we want to continue that?
Mhm.
And this is not, the first such touch point we've had. We've had a couple of other votes along the way that have passed unanimously by this council that yes, we should keep moving in this direction.
Exactly.
So
we're gonna try to give you as much information as we possibly can. Do we have all the answers to all the questions? Oh, heck no, okay? But we're gonna try to be as transparent and open and as thorough and as organized in our presentation as we possibly can. It's a big deal for the community, and we're gonna try to do it as professionally as we can.
great, thank you. I wanted to make sure we raised that tonight. So.
Okay. Any other questions? The moon is rising. Okay, we'll keep going. So we're going to move on to item C, which is the Kitsap Bazaar 2025 Moonlight Market and Waterfront Proposal. And this is?
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Nicolaisen, and I am the owner of Kitsap Bazaar. Yeah, it's just a packet with pretty much the same information that's going to be in this presentation as well. Just that way you have it in hand. Has a couple marketing materials as well as our Moonlit Market bingo card that we're kind of implementing, or it's a stamp card potentially if we get enough businesses on board. Anyway, we'll get into this. All right, so the concept is an evening market with local vendors, food, entertainment. Our event hours would be May, July, September 5 to 9. And June 7th would be a 7 to 10 p.m. Setup normally would go at 3 p.m. and break down at 11. Vendor count for a normal market would be 35 vendors or city recommendation. That one special market on it's June 14th, I apologize. The 7 p.m. is what throws me off. Setup time is at 5 p.m., breakdown at 11 p.m. 25 vendors for that one or city recommendation.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. It's May, July, August, and September. What days?
Okay, so they are also in that packet, but it's going to be May 10th, July 12th, August 9th, June 14th, and September 13th.
So it's once a month.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, so it's
all
going to be every second Saturday. So
I think isn't that the second Saturday of
second
each
Saturday.
month? Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, it aligns with the art walk.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I missed your introduction.
Oh, I'm Taylor Nicolaisen, and I'm the event coordinator and owner of Kitsap Bazaar.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Of course. All right. Why we want to do this? It supports local economy, engages community, boosts downtown businesses, including increased foot traffic during the art walk, and a vibrant atmosphere adds culture and excitement to downtown Poulsbo. The logistics and coordination, trash and maintenance, guaranteed trash pickup and bathroom access by 10 p.m. I know that since I have submitted this, 9 p.m. is when the restrooms close. That's when the market would end, besides the one market that goes till 10 p.m. Obviously, we can adjust those as needed. I know if a portable restroom is needed, I have no problem supplying that as well. Respect for city spaces, no interference with the Maple area. That is for the specific event, June 14th, which comes after the Midsummer Festival. And then the coordination with other events. So for the, we have talked to them as well in the Sons of Norway, and you'll find that in the packet that I gave you, that they have guaranteed that they'll be out by 3:30 p.m.
Is that why the June one, you have smaller vendors, because the conflict of events?
Yes, I mean, we could do 37 vendors, no problem. We want to make sure, because we are cutting it close with city who may want to get in there and to provide maintenance in between the events, that we could do a smaller amount, so that way it's not overcrowding anything and everything moves smoothly. Yes. And then safety and organization, the 2-hour setup and breakdown for safety and compliance. Why we need 2 hours. Vendor packup. Vendors need to carefully pack up their items, take down their tents and displays, and load everything back into their vehicles. Event staff and vendors must work together to leave the venue as clean as it was before the market. This includes removing trash, taking down signs, and restoring any changes made to the space. Addressing issues, allowing extra time for unexpected delays or issues such as difficult to move items. And overall, just providing 2 hours ensures the setup and breakdown process are organized, safe, and respectful of the venue's requirements. The other thing is, a lot of the vendors are elderly, so it takes them a little bit longer than that 1 hour. Most of the vendors will be out in 1 hour. There is very select few that may be there past 10 p.m. My experience, I'm in my 5th year of my Kiana Lodge event, the Pacific Northwest Holiday Market, which I have gotten LTAC for from the city of Poulsbo. I'm also have done the Marina Square Night Market last summer. I was hired by Rails to Trails Coalition for All Along the Riverwalk. I'm in my 2nd year for that. And I've also managed vendors for Krampus Bremerton. And a lot of my customer base is in Poulsbo and North Kitsap because of the Pacific Northwest Holiday Market. And these are just some photos of my previous events. And why evening events works? I know that some people had concerns about it being an evening event. It attracts families and professionals after work hours, increase attendance. A lot of people work on Saturdays. It's a comfortable atmosphere, cooler temperatures in the evening. Our summers have been very unpredictable. And enhanced experience, lighting and evening entertainment just kind of add to a moonlight vibe. Evening markets have been well received in similar venues at like Marina Square in Bremerton. They also have a night market going on at the boardwalk as well, which is why we have chose to move to the city of Poulsbo if accepted. Requests for approval, seeking support, ensuring safety, cleanliness, and positive impact to the community, and looking forward to a partnership collaborating with the city to create a successful and memorable event. So that's kind of my PowerPoint. I'm going to say in this packet, it may help some of those questions as well. So if anyone has any questions, I can kind of help you go through it as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Noel.
Yeah, I've got a few questions here. Can you talk a little bit about your org structure? Are you an LLC?
So technically it says LLC, but I'm a sole proprietor. I did apply for that.
All right, so, but do you charge the participants?
Yes. So I'm a for-profit.
Okay, and so when you have these events, I take it you are enforcing that all the vendors collect sales tax?
Yes, yeah.
Would the sales tax be when they show up at a specific event, like in Bremerton? Are they tagging it to the city of Bremerton, or are they going back to their home of record?
It goes, so if they're in the city of Poulsbo, they record it in the city of Poulsbo.
Okay, and so what you're asking here is to be able to come down and use our park on one Saturday a month during the summer?
Yes.
And be able to set up and bring in 35 people to set up?
Yes. These are vendors that are local to Poulsbo and North Kitsap as well.
And you would be paying us how much?
So there is
to cover costs, and I mean, effectively, this becomes I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
pontificate a little bit, a recurring business that gets prime real estate and brings in traffic where we're struggling typically on Saturday afternoons. Traffic both by you guys setting up, but others. And so it sets up a competition with our other businesses downtown that lease and pay property taxes, pay sales taxes, pay B&O taxes. And so I'm just trying to get my head around what the structure is you're proposing.
Yeah. So yes, as a for-profit business, I don't make a whole lot of money. A lot of the money that I do get back, I put into the event itself. I like to say it's a thankless job. I am a full-time college student. I also work full-time. So this is not my only sort of business. So when it comes to payment, I don't require any funding. So it would be independently done. And I understand the concern potentially with clashing with downtown Poulsbo. I've spoke to a number of the businesses who are happy about the Moonlight Market and are excited to see it be brought down here. I've also in our proposal, there's parking plan to help alleviate that. I'm in the process of working with the Gateway Church and Pacific Northwest Tours and Pours to get a shuttle service from Gateway to the park to ensure that parking can be easy flowing, because I know that is definitely a big concern on Saturdays. I'm also not asking for the whole lot. We're taking just the left side for vendors. So that way it ensures that there's continuous parking downtown as well.
Mr. Stern?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm used to receiving this more in the context of a lodging tax advisory committee, where we have multiple parties to screen it through and then develop a recommendation, which then goes to the city. I'm wondering, Mayor, have you or the city administrator or the Parks Director reviewed this such that we have a recommendation from the city preliminarily?
I have not seen this document until tonight. And Jeff, have you reviewed the documents?
Staff reviewed the original application, but Taylor, I think you had some new information that I saw that was handed out to council. So what you have in front of you, I'm not familiar with at the moment.
Yes, so a lot of this information was stuff that I was able to clarify within the last week of speaking to Lynn when some of the questions were brought up.
You know what, I think because I've never seen this stuff and I know the council hasn't, I think we need to table this for right now.
Okay.
We need more information. Let us get some time to read this and go through it. And then we'll have Jeff get back to you and then we can reschedule this, okay?
All right,
Does
thank
that
you.
work for you guys? Okay.
Yeah, just a question for Jeff. Would this fall under as a special event?
Right now, the way I understand it, if someone wants to do a park use application and it has impacts to public services, it would fall under a special event. And so we'd have to go through
the
that.
public. Yeah, that's what I was getting at, is the public services.
So we need to approve a permit as well as the extended hours for tear down. Is that right, Jeff?
Right now, from also what I heard, there would be two approvals. One is after hours, correct? So anything in the dark. And two, anything past 10 p.m.
Okay.
Such as the street dance comes and asks for permission. Same principle, because it's after hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just,
I'm sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
yeah, just being a special event and looking for services, it butts up against our ongoing conversation about making sure that we are reimbursing costs for the police department, for public works and all that, that what we're expending to support events like this, that we're at least getting a reasonable response. And I know you are going to be bringing back to us more information on that. Since this goes through the whole year, just factor in when you look at this, that at what point this is, because this will probably cross over when you would be adjusting that. So it's just part of that conversation, I think.
We need a little more information here. And this is brand new to me. Okay, I have not seen this before. So I'd like to reschedule this, and I'll get with you, Jeff. Okay, does that work?
Do you mind if I ask Taylor a question?
Go ahead.
Just real quick, I didn't see it in the previous stuff, and I'm not sure what's in the packet there. Just picking up what you were talking about. Did I hear you say you're going to be requesting some parking reservations for your vendors to park?
From what Lynn had showed me for, because when you apply for the event, it will give you, obviously options that you can rent out, because it's just a public, park type thing. She had said the left side lot would potentially be reserved for like vendor parking and or food vendors that would have to be on the blacktop. I haven't made a map for that or anything. So that hasn't been in my initial design at all. But it was something that she had mentioned to me previously.
Okay, and then you're talking about having, I just noticed that tonight that you're talking about having food vendors there. And it was always my assumption that number one, you were gonna be up in the park itself, in the grass in the park. So I'm concerned with having food vendors up there. What food vendors you're gonna have? Are they deep frying stuff that's gonna, that park's getting loved to death as it is. So when we have other issues like that, it's concerning.
Yes, of course. All the food vendors that we have are ones that are already approved through the city of Poulsbo. So anybody that were to apply and want to do the market will have to make sure that they have all the necessary permits within the city. Some of them, may be people making burgers, potentially barbecue, things of that nature. But I know not anything that I'm aware of right now that will have grease traps and things like that.
Definitely a location of where their booths will be. We'll want to know that.
Yes.
Okay, more to come.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you for coming
course,
and
thank you.
let us get a little more information. Okay. The next is the stormwater functional plan update. This is Charlie. This is what.
And Rachel as well. We are excited to. We're always excited about stormwater.
Very excited.
No, we're excited to share the last functional plan update with you guys. So this is the third utility functional plan that you guys have seen. It's the stormwater functional plan. Stormwater is typically the last functional plan that we do, and we'd hate to be out of style with our previous efforts. So we are bringing this to you at the end of the process. But this is all part of the ongoing comprehensive plan work that the planning department's been working on. And so this is the stormwater functional plan as part of that effort. We completed this just last month in February with our draft plan. And it's pretty similar to our other functional plans for the stormwater utility. We start with the program kind of system description. We look at the growth impacts and how it affects stormwater. And the growth I'm talking about is the population allocation that the planning department has identified. So I want to make sure that, for the 20-year growth that the city is anticipating, that stormwater can be mitigated appropriately and handled as part of that. Stormwater has this unique impact on our natural environment and our critical areas. So we took a look at that. We have the NPDES program, and we have an ongoing permit. And so we have a chapter on that in there. And then the final piece of our functional plan is the capital improvement plan for the next 10 years, as well as a financial analysis of the utility. So kind of the level of service goals that we set in the stormwater department, kind of the overarching goals, improving and maintaining the water quality in Liberty Bay. I think it's one of the primary focuses that the city's had for the last couple of years. It's something that we're really important to maintain and continue to improve. We also have some other level of service goals like, preventing flooding on private property, maintaining our critical water resources, as well, while allowing the city to continue growing and roads to go in and mitigating flooding and potential things like that. And then also complying with all the applicable local, state, and federal regulations. From the federal level, we have the Clean Water Act that we have to comply with, and the State Department of Ecology regulates what we discharge into our waters of the state through the NPDES permit. And so we've got all these applicable regulations that we need to comply with. And we also want to be able to fund our stormwater utility and pursue funding sources. And all of that kind of wraps up in the functional planning with our utility. So this is a map of our system. The kind of colored blocks are the drainage basins. So these are the generally stream drainage basins. And then the blue is our pipe network. So we've got about 80 miles of stormwater pipe in the city. And quite a few facilities to treat the water, detain it, and kind of handle the stormwater runoff. And all of that's managed by 3.8 FTEs on the operations side in Public Works, and those are the boots on the ground guys that are responsible for maintenance. And stormwater is one of the unique utilities in that we also have almost an equivalent amount of private facilities that we are responsible for inspecting annually and making sure that they're doing their piece of the maintenance. Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt, Charlie, but this is such a good map. Do you have one that details where our catch basins are rather than just the drainages themselves?
I do, but it's not part of this presentation, but it's in our plan.
So that,
Yeah,
let me
we've
pause
mapped it.
then. I really appreciate the mayor the last few years, last 10 years, moving from what had been the city's earlier approach to what we used to euphemistically call water prisons to parks.
I'm still working on it.
I know you are. So my question is within the plan and one that affects the citizens that they notice more than the fish in the bay, which we really appreciate, is that ability to convert. And I know Mountaineer was one of the first to take the catch basin and make it look like a facility and an amenity. So with that said, and I won't belabor this, I'm wondering what financing or capacity we've built into this for retroactive work where appropriate.
Yeah, so it's kind of I'd say one of the things with the stormwater parks is where we've seen it happen the most is when we have developers come in and they want to get a dual use out of their stormwater ponds, or stormwater vaults, sorry. So they don't want a vault that is a gravel lot or a grass lot. They want to put a recreational amenity on top of it. And so we definitely have a focused on allowing that for developments in the city of Poulsbo. So like this is we call it Johnson Ridge, but I think it's Liberty Bay Vista now. But this is a very large stormwater vault here, and it has some recreational amenities on it and also has an amazing view of the bay. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, Mountain Air down here is more of a recreational aesthetic. So we put that.
Actually, I was up once again today, running around Ojeva, looking at those storm ponds, thinking, how do we fence them? How do we get the fences down? How do we get the walking pathways in? How do we get the benches? How do we get the tables? And most importantly, how do we turn a existing stormwater pond into a recreational asset? And because of the liability issues, if you have a recreational asset, you have recreational release from liability. So if we can rename those parks, there's a chance, but I'm still working on it. There's some great, not.
Yeah, there's a few different things there. One of them is developer wants to build a pond as efficiently as possible, which is a really steep slope.
So we have to fix the slopes, but we can, there's ways we can do this. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the other.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, I think the other thing with stormwater ponds that they are collecting pollutant runoff from our roadway, and so we just have to be a little bit cognizant of these aren't natural ponds that we want people playing in. But I think the stormwater vault is, and the stormwater vaults, as far as developments go, like all the easy land in the city has been developed, and so we're seeing these people do more and more vaults just due to the topography and to squeeze lots on the available land, and so I'm kind of thinking that we're going to see a lot more vaults with recreational amenities, as opposed to traditional fenced ponds. It's kind of the way it's shifting a little bit.
Up right by the Poulsbo Cemetery in Colorado, where they've got new grass and benches around on the top of the vault.
You mentioned Ojava, but you mentioned in the past too, and we talked about it, the ones that are next to the library across from Public Works. And you know, if there's anything that can be done there, because that's a very prime location right across from a park. That's just, like you said, water prison. It's a It's a nice little duck habitat part of the year, but the rest of the time it's,
Yeah, you're right.
no one
I'd
else
love
is
to put
using
a
it,
pad
just
on
the
it, put
ducks.
it- Make it into a basketball court to play through.
So let me go back a little bit here, sorry. So I think Rachel will share some of our recent projects we've done in the past couple of years since our last functional plan. And I'd say the highlight here is that the city is committed to making investments in our infrastructure and improving water quality. So I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, we've done a number of projects since the last functional plan over the last 12, 13 years. Some of these projects are water quality projects. Some of them are done as part of transportation projects. And then we also have projects that we do as part of habitat restoration. I have an image here. This is the 8th Avenue South Fork Dogfish Creek habitat restoration. We did that in 2020. And that was a project that was done in anticipation of having the 8th Avenue culvert replaced with having a fish-friendly culvert, so that we would have a stream downstream that is restored because the existing culvert has degraded it. The Liberty Bay Bioretention Project, that's another recent project. It's a good example of a stormwater retrofit project that we had in our CIP. This was an ecology grant funded project that had a vault installation at the Poulsbo Middle School, and then also a retrofit, the bioswale. So it provided enhanced treatment in an area that had none, and it's a little bit over 100-acre basin. We also do projects that are part of transportation projects. A couple examples of that is the Bjorgen Creek culvert replacement, as well as Finn Hill. So Finn Hill, also in 2020, we did stormwater treatment vault as part of that project. And part of Johnson Parkway, we had the Bjorgen Creek culvert was a fish passage barrier. We had that replaced with fish-friendly passage.
And that's all covered with daffodils right now.
Is
all,
it?
all along Finn Hill? Yeah, the sugar
Ah.
path, yeah.
And these investments that we make are really pivotal to maintain our water quality here. We have extensive water quality sampling data over the past 20 years, especially in fecal coliform. Currently, we contract with Kitsap Public Health District. They do sampling for us 3 times a year at city streams and outfalls. And what we found since the last functional plan, especially over the last 10 years, is that we're seeing in most of our sites a long-term improving trend when it comes to fecal coliform.
I find these kind of charts great. Realizing the south side of Liberty Bay is outside of our jurisdiction, can you provide any comment on ongoing projects? Are there things down there working? I mean, we share the same water, but are there things to get those orange and red dots trending a prettier color?
No, that's a great question. I don't know of any county projects.
Let me help.
Oh, yeah,
please. The Kitsap Public Health District has their PIC program, which is they're investigating all the times when they have poor water quality like this, failing septic systems. And, there's low cost loans that they will give homeowners to replace and redo their septic systems. They're also now finally using something I fought with them for a long time, called MST, which is microbial source tracking, so that when they go in and they test for the water quality, not only are they figuring out what poo it is, but where the poo is coming from, okay, to be real blunt. And whether it's birds, it's raccoons, it's horses, or it's people. And because all those are different fixes, okay, you have to do different things to address that kind of water quality. So yeah, the health district is doing a lot of work there, so.
Great, yeah, we use all that information to monitor how we're doing with our, oh, sorry, did you have a question, Councilman?
Yeah, just
Eckhart?
when
Sorry.
we get further down, I was
Yeah.
trying to match up the one that's declining, the Poulsbo Marina parking, to something on the capital slide, and I couldn't do it. So if it does line up to a future project, can you highlight that when we get there, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Poulsbo Marina one, 9th Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Poulsbo Marina is the 9th Avenue, or it's the marina that's closest to 9th Avenue. Yeah, Liberty Bay Marina there. And I'd say probably the project there is just the Old Town improvements. That area has a little bit of stormwater infrastructure, but not a lot. We haven't ever done a project down there.
So the Old Town stormwater improvements, it's kind of towards the bottom of the long-term projects. That one, okay.
Yeah, and it lines up with the Old Town Water project as well. So there's some investment in our oldest parts of town that we need to make on all infrastructure sides, so. We kind of talked about the stormwater parks a little bit, the opportunities they provide. This map is something we had help with from our consultant BHC put together. It largely reflects our zoning map, but basically it shows that the darker redder areas are where we expect more intense development and higher impervious surface rates, so more impervious surface coverage. And then the yellow is our low density zoning. And it's interesting, we did some calculations in the plan, and on a per capita basis, multifamily, as you might expect, is quite a bit more efficient as far as impervious surface goes than single family. But I was a little bit surprised at how much more efficient it was. And the other part of stormwater is that each site has to mitigate its impacts on site with that specific project. So it's kind of we don't have to plan a project to accommodate 10,000 people. Each project of those, maybe 10 or 15 projects, they mitigate their own impacts as they build it. Yeah, Ben.
So you just made me think of something. We were talking last time, Brian brought the current bill that's being considered about the RVs compared with ADUs, compared with how, basically the potential for a house plus 2 ADU and or RVs on each lot in the city. Is stormwater being factored into that at all? Because I would imagine maybe not necessarily impervious surface on RVs, but it certainly is with ADUs, and they're producing, they're going to change the topography of that site, which could affect this. I mean, are any of those kind of consequences of these decisions being factored in?
I haven't heard any conversation about stormwater. That particular bill does require water and sewer hookup, but it doesn't talk about the creation of impervious surfaces and stormwater mitigation.
Yeah, that's bringing it to the site. I'm thinking about the takeaway, because that's the one thing. I mean, part of the reason we're running into some of the things we're seeing is because we keep taking away the dirt that would absorb the water in the first place. And if we're going to let every single lot have a house plus, and we're not factoring it into this utility, I just see us setting up future, taking all this work that you've done to make the bay clean, and it's going to be dirty again.
Yeah, it is a little bit challenging because of the way the stormwater manual reads is you have to hit certain thresholds for development before you trigger certain requirements. And so if you've got a large scale plat, you hit all the requirements right off the bat. But when you come in with your single family house, you hit a few of the requirements, but they're lesser. And when you come in for an ADU, you're generally under all the requirements. But part of what the ecology manual, I think, because they update it routinely, then we adopt it as they update it. But one of the things that's kind of come up more is the incremental development, so you don't get your homeowner building a house and avoiding some impacts, and then they come back and build an ADU and avoid impacts and come back and build a second.
That's what I'm kind of thinking of is, yeah, sure, you're looking at it when the original house is built.
Yep.
But then you add an ADU, and then you add an RV, and then you add, it's those later on additions that maybe aren't being considered, what the long-term consequences of those are. And if I remember correct, at least the current bill on the one ADU says we cannot prevent that from being built. We cannot deny that. So even if something like a stormwater analysis comes back and says, yeah, you shouldn't build that, the other law says we can't say no to the ADU. And I don't know how this law is worded exactly, but if we can't say no.
But I think that's the tension of, do we layer in an engineering study to go build an EDU? It drives up the costs. And so, I think.
Well, a balancing act.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. But
It kind of goes back to the GMA versus ecology argument we talked about before. Who's going to win? Because if we cannot say no to ADUs, but it's going to not meet these requirements, what's the end answer? I don't see one right now. And It concerns me.
Well,
Yeah.
this is state policy. There's not, we can't solve it tonight.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the mitigating factors that kind of I see when thinking about ADUs is most of the ADUs are going to be occurring on older lots, and most of our older lots have a little bit more space to do some on-site mitigation. And a lot of our older lots in town have direct discharge to the bay. And so if they're piping a roof that's generally considered clean water into a pipe that goes directly to the bay, it's not having the impact that it would somewhere else. So it is, I think it is an issue, but it's not, I'm not raising any super big alarms right now. So, but yeah, no, I think ADUs it's going to come up as a, something that gets looked at for sure. So.
Great. We took a section in the functional plan to talk about our NPDS program. This is the largest portion of our stormwater utility as far as staff time goes. That stands for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That's NPDS permit, authorized by the Department of Ecology. And essentially, if we want to be able to discharge our stormwater to waters of the state, we have to have this permit. The new permit term started just in August, so this is a good opportunity for us to look at the new permit, because typically when you have a new permit, the restrictions get more stringent. This new permit has an increased focus on preventing the release of specific pollutants, increasing stormwater retrofits, tree canopy goals, and outreach to overburdened communities, just to name a few of the new requirements. So we took the time to do an NPS gap analysis as well as a staffing analysis that I won't include here, but is available in the functional plan. Basically to show like what are we going to need to be able to meet these new permit requirements and also just maintain the increasing stormwater infrastructure that we're having in the city.
Is this for residential as well?
Yes.
NPDS is everything.
Yeah, it's everything within, it's a geographical area, basically.
I'm saying the permit for pressure washing, is that going to be on residential homes?
Yeah, so the new permit requirement on that is regarding a specific chemical that they're trying to prevent to going into stormwater. So it'll be about building age. So it'll be residential and commercial buildings.
Yeah, it's buildings that were built when there were PCBs in the building material. So buildings within a certain decade range are of concern.
Yeah, I'm just thinking is, necessarily individual homeowner is going to know they need a permit, so we probably
They
need to
don't know
educate.
they're not supposed to wash their car in their driveway too. Okay, so there's a lot of things that this requires that are not commonly known. I mean,
Right.
You're not supposed to.
And I don't think we're thinking about an individual permit, but definitely part of doing the gap analysis is showing like, how are we going to let homeowners and businesses know about this new requirement coming up?
Yeah,
We
I'm
have
just thinking if I go out and pressure wash the moss off my driveway, do I need to know, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, folks need to know this.
Mhm,
If
understood.
if they gotta have a permit to do it, we gotta make sure they know or that they're doing something they shouldn't.
I think for the specific pressure washing one, we'll be able to use the GI or the county housing data to determine which buildings are of concern, because it really is a limited range of dates that when they were constructed and the materials that were used that is the current concern in the permit. And so we may end up with like 4 buildings that we reach out to the building owner and say, hey, just as you know, please don't pressure wash your building. So it's not like every single person that gets a pressure washer out, we're going to be coming down on.
Right.
So.
Right. It's 1915 to 1980 is the date range for buildings that were built or largely remodeled is what the permit says. So we're still in the early stages of that, but part of doing the functional plan is coming up with implementation timelines and some program recommendations so we can start thinking about that early and start providing that outreach as needed.
So this is just the list of projects that we put in our capital program for the next 10 years. Can't really tell on the screen, but some of these projects are highlighted as blue. Doesn't really come across up here. But the blue projects are one we're pursuing grant funding for. And so we've historically been very successful in obtaining grant funding for water quality enhancement type projects, which is the ones that we've identified up there.
What's SFDC?
South Fork Dogfish Creek.
Okay, sorry.
Is our ability to attract grant funds for projects like this perhaps going to be impacted by some of the budget issues in Olympia?
Well,
Anybody's
actually,
guess?
this
I mean,
is-
it's
This
sort
is-
of,
This is NPDES, which is National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. So you're talking federal,
Oh,
this is
then there's
federal
that.
dollars streaming down through the state. So anybody knows I don't think anybody knows at this point what's gonna happen. So.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
think-
I just
think-
thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah,
Well, and if the governor's plan to furlough all all state employees a day a month, I would foresee that it'll slow down at least our processing of these things because, you know, everyone's gonna be off a day, plus they gotta recover for being off a day.
yeah, and I'd say too, the grant funded projects are opportunistic. Like they're a chance to provide a benefit to a water quality and improve the water quality in the bay. They're not we have to do this project. It's more if we can get grant funding, we'll pursue it. It's a good opportunity. So.
Okay.
Yep. Moving on. We also did the financial analysis and a projection for the 10-year planning period. Keep it pretty high level for you guys. But when we talk about stormwater, we're talking about ISUs, which is an impervious surface unit. So it's a little bit different than ERUs. And we look at ISU 3,000 square feet of impervious surface.
Is it 3,000 square feet?
Yep, 3,000 square feet is what our code defines it as. And other jurisdictions use slightly different numbers, but 3,000 is a decent number for the area. As part of our financial analysis, we're proposing a $200 one-time increase to our general facility charge, as well as proposed rates in 2027. The fund's stable for a few years, and so that's not an immediate need. And our recommendation at this time is to revisit the rates after we complete the solid waste assessment that's going to be happening later this year. That may impact what the stormwater looks like, and the stormwater rates are part of that analysis as well. So no action on the rates at this time. And just to give you guys an idea, kind of the region average for a monthly stormwater rate is a little bit less than $26, and we're currently at $22.67. So we're a little bit under the average for the region, and our GFC is pretty close to the average. But we're proposing a one-time increase of $200 to
Wow.
put that.
Port Orchard is really high.
Yeah. And so we would propose bringing that GFC increase forward because that shifts some of the capital development cost onto the developer when they build a new house. And even with a $200 increase, we're pretty close to the average. So we haven't increased it since 2014 when we implemented it originally. So. And with that, I would entertain any questions and thank you guys for listening and asking some really good questions.
Questions? Looks really good. This is one of the great secrets of local government, how important this is. This is really important because if we don't do this, we have a dirty Liberty Bay. Okay, and a dirty Liberty Bay is not where we want to be. And so this stuff is really important.
And
So,
no one's gonna want to park downtown too.
yeah, exactly. No one's gonna want to park downtown in front of a dirty Liberty Bay. Okay. Go ahead.
Just a little shout out to the team here. This was a Charlie and Rachel effort on the stormwater plan, and doing it in-house made it very, very cost effective for the city. And I think the product is the best that we've had for a stormwater management plan. So thank you very much.
That's high praise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you guys.
Okay, so now we have Mike Lund, Pump Station Safety Improvement Project Acceptance. Okay.
Hello again. Yes. Good. I like it. Good. Fine, we can do that. if you want. That's not my. That's the wrong one. So, give me the desk.
Got it.
Okay. Here we go. We can make this real quick. So this is a project that we've had going on for a few years now. We got some money to do some improvements. I'll do this so you can hear me. Do some improvements at our pump stations. We did some improvements at 5 of our pump stations. We have 9 pump stations. We did some work at 5 of them. Bond Road, Lindvik, Village, Liberty, and of course the Marine Science Center generator. Just a couple of quick pictures. We did over on the left-hand side, some manhole safety improvements. So we don't fall into those holes down into the wet wells. We don't want to do that. It's very, very nasty down there. We did some improvements on our areas for where our controls are, just to keep the sun off them and the rain out of them. And then of course we did some pump repairs there. We did at Bond Road, we did a bypass, so we can physically shut the station off and do whatever work we need to do and still have that sewer flowing and running there. So that was nice. And then you remember about 6 months ago, those nasty pictures of the panels we showed at Marine Science Center. These are the new ones. We're very happy to have that work done. Generators in, everything works great. We came in under budget.
Mike, a quick question on the upgrades. How is the remote telemetry working out that we invested in for, failure, alert, and all the rest of emergency
Fantastic.
response?
Yeah, we're working fantastic. We monitored, it's on most of our phones that we have. It beeps the guys if there's any issues during storms and stuff. My phone's in my hand, sitting in my chair, watching TV, going, seeing what's going on. So
The avoided sewer outfall is the real reward of this program. So well done.
We've done really well with that the last few years. So lots of improvements we've been making and everything. So no, and would like to be able to move this on to the consent agenda for next week.
Any problems with this? Go ahead, Rick.
No, I just, on the budget slide, the other advantage of this, I want to point out, and because I mentioned it once before, is when we do these jobs proactively and timely, if almost every single time, Public Works and Engineering brings them in under cost, under budget. It's only when they drag on year to year to year that they come in, they get more expensive. So thank you.
Well, this one's been a multi-year project of just little stuff. I know Deb will be very happy to get this off her books.
Yeah, it's but when we're proactive and make decisions quickly, they bring it in for less. So keep that in mind for the future.
Consent agenda for you guys next week. So thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. Now we have the financial update year end of 2024. This is Deb.
Now we are on to the exciting part of the program. So let's see. It is in your packet, so I will try to go in the order of the packet. And the first item on there is sales tax. So let me pull that up and I can share my screen. So, and I can attest to the mayor commenting that she is now getting relaxed and some of the pressure is up. She was actually in my office today with a couple of my staff when we were talking T accounts and journal entries. The only things, some of the things us only accountants can enjoy, right? Getting back to the basics. It's a puzzle. I know. They all think accounting is numbers, but really it's a puzzle. So the good news is we now have our 12 months of sales tax in. This is the money we receive. We wait until the last day in February that we receive that distribution from the state for February that applies back to December. So you can see the good news is we are over budget. We budgeted $5.5 million for 2024. And our actual revenue for the year is $5,672,000. So we're about a little under 2% over year to date. What was interesting to me on this is sales related to December. And this month used to be one of the top 2 of the year because that's when everybody was doing their holiday shopping. Or the year-end sales. And what's done is now I'm seeing some of the months towards the spring and the summer bringing in more of those dollars, a lot because of construction, which we'll see on the next slide. And also when people are doing garden and home improvements. Yes.
Sorry, when I look at the year-to-date number, how does that compare, 5.186 compared to the 5.6? The year-to-date.
Oh, this it looks like there's a formula off. So the year to date,
Okay.
sorry, thank you for pointing that out.
So 5.6 is actual?
5.6 is actual.
All right.
The
And
formula
so
didn't put that up yet.
last year, we were at 5.5.
Correct. So we were about almost 5.6,
I
5.57.
guess if possible at some point and it might require signing a disclosure statement, I'd like to take a next layer down. We're only up 1.71% from the previous year, which is not even inflation. So, right, this would actually imply less transactions. And so, what is that? I remember before we dug into it, and it looked like RV sales over on Viking Avenue might have, but I'd like to understand where it is. Is Ojava up and 305 down, or just at the area level? Where are we seeing? Where do we think the challenges are, or is it just flat across the board?
So the next slide will be helpful, but yeah. So what we are noticing is the last 2 months of the year, they're actually under where the prior year was. So we are starting to see those numbers flatten and slight declines. Here's the next slide. And so you can see year to date, it's actually the retail trade is showing a slight decrease, or not slight, but that makes up most of the decrease. And then our wholesaling is up. Those are usually related to 1 or 2 large transactions, sometimes computer software that somebody buys or a piece of equipment. The construction shows the increase. And I will say, just looking at the month-to-month date for construction, the last 2 months have been showing a decrease. So we're starting to see a slight decline in the construction. However, we are in December, and the months of weather will play into that. And we do have secrecy agreements. I believe that we have filled all those out for council members. And if you come to our office, since you have done that, we can dig into a little bit more detail. We are very regulated by Department of Revenue on specific businesses we can talk about because it is proprietary.
Yeah, and I don't want to get down to the business level, but I remember seeing this when I was scanning earlier. It's the fact that food services is up only 30, but retail trade is effectively down. I mean, just absolutely flat, which is okay.
Yeah, it's indicative, and when you listen to economists, you can see that they're starting to have a little bit what the economists are always bringing up is their confidence in consumer spending. And I'm thinking,
absolutely.
and I'm thinking we're seeing that, and we'll see that reflected in the numbers. What I see from this slide, which I think is very good news, is I think the council in the past has done a very good job of diversifying where their revenue streams are. And so to me, it's yes, there's some increases and decreases, and we'll see those fluctuate every year, but it's very diversified. And so you can see our accommodation and food services is up year to date. And so I think that's good news. And we do track this every month. So it's continued to watch it. But I do hear your concerns, and I hear the economy concerns as well. Yes.
Debbie, I think one of the things Councilman Newell was asking for is the report by zone. Do you have it broken out by zone?
So that report is very much a manual driven report, and it's not right.
Not ours. I'm just trying to go, what is the trends and where are we seeing stuff happen?
Yes.
Just the health of our various business districts.
And I would love for you, I have a program that if you come into my office, since you've signed that secrecy agreement, I can show you some of those specifics where those are, because but again, I think it is good news that we are very diversified. So it's interesting because many years when we've been up in retail trade, construction has been down and they kind of flop back and forth, and then the food industry. So we are seeing a decline. We are very conservative in our spending. I think in 2025, we projected maybe 5.6 million. So pretty close to what we're collecting. So I feel comfortable with our projected figures, but it's definitely something we're going to visit.
It's
Yep.
flat. I said that the other night. I said it's flattening, okay? And I'm in it, so.
Now, the good news is Flat is doing a lot better than a lot of our peers.
That is a very valid point. I have been hearing from many of my neighbors that they're seeing, anywhere from 20 to 40% declines month to month in sales tax.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you're at. So we are in a very, we're actually in a very good bubble, because you'll see our numbers are very healthy. And when I've talked to some of my neighbors, they're not as healthy. And so that's why I'm very appreciative that we're so diversified in what we project. And we're also very conservative. And we have, and as you'll see, our fund balance very much will take us through the times, which it did in 2008 and it did in 2012. And so that's what I feel very comfortable and strong about, that we will come through this and we are ready to grow out of the economic decline. So that's very good news. And so that is the sales tax. And then let's see, we can stop sharing that and I'll pull up the real estate excise tax. These are revenues that that you guys have asked to track on a regular basis. Let's see. Just trying to find, there's a lot of files in here. I couldn't pull up the packet because everything's landscaped and turned a different way, so it wasn't very easy to read. Right. And this is another area where we're very much conservative. So this is our real estate excise tax. And this comes in 2/4% that we collect. And so you can see that for the year, in the first 1/4%, we had $350,000 budgeted for each bucket, and it's distributed in each category. One is primarily used for transportation capital project, and the other one is used for parks, general facilities, and can also be used for transportation packets. And we use one of those 1/4% to support our debt payment for City Hall. So as you can see, we had $350,000 budgeted in one of those percents, and we actually brought in $589,000. So we are 168% of what our budget is. And so you can see it really fluctuates through the year, where some of your decreases, because it's very much transactional based. The good news is we're over projection. We build in many of these transfers into our city improvement plan. And so this allows us to have a little flexibility going out to future years when some of those projects come in a little bit higher than maybe we projected. We do have a source that we can come back to. And we've also, in presentations in the past, we have delegated some of these future funds to funding the debt payment for the PERC, as well as the Null Road project that we're doing, a future project. Yes.
Deb, I just pulled up what was in the presentation. Those are different numbers than what you have
So
on the screen.
I have,
Making sure I'm watching.
this is the first 1/4%. And so let me see. Yeah, I have both. So let's see.
Fund 121, first 1/4%. Maybe I had the wrong one.
No, you have the right one. I just had pulled up the one that, I can pull up the whole presentation, which has the packet that's turned sideways. And so that's one of, I track them both in 1/4%. Here is, let me pull it up, the date.
Yeah, I was looking at the same title. I thought
Yeah, so there's the total for all of it, $700,000 annual. Oh, I gotta share it, don't I? That might be helpful.
All right, so this is, okay. Just going down the list in your packet.
Yep.
I got it. That's enough.
Yeah, so here's the year to date for both of those 1/4%. So you can see we received in almost $1.2 million for both of those, and about $52,000 over last year, which is surprising.
I was out running around today and I was looking, we have 2 more huge subdivisions kicking off here in the next, very short period, where we've got clearing and grading permits that have been issued or will be issued shortly. Plateau has been issued, and I think Audrey is in the process. So we have two very large ones coming forward. The ones that are actively working right now is Liberty Bay Vista, which is at the end of Johnson Parkway. And the other one is Winslow Ridge, which is up by Vinland Elementary. They are both, the houses in both of those subdivisions are selling very quickly. I mean, they're just, there was a listing 4 days ago for one particular lot in Liberty Bay Vista that sold today. 4 days it was on the market. Okay, and this is, both of those projects are selling very quickly. So whether that will continue, I don't know, but right now we still have a pretty red hot real estate market.
So now here is a chart that shows several years of history. And so you can see if we look at a 10-year average, our annual collection is about 950,000 just over the last 10 years. And you can see that here's a direct effect of one of those declines in our economic. And then we continue to grow. And I think what the latest is a lot of it's related to the high, not only the building industry, but the higher price of homes in the city as well. And sometimes we get these one-time hits for when a company changes names, such as when Albertsons reincorporates into Safeway, they have to pay the real estate excise tax on the value of all that property, which is a one-time collection. And
Don't change your name.
yeah, I believe the retirement home up there has changed a few times, which is a very big number. So the county puts up reports that we can go and access to track to these things. But so you can see that we're kind of flat in these last few years, but we build the budget because we're always a little nervous about the housing industry and where it's going, and it's very transactional based. And what this does is this comes into a separate special revenue fund and is very directed on what the usage is, and we direct it very specifically to where it's used. So coming in over budget is not a bad deal, and that will help us in our long range capital improvement plan, as well as possibly the future debt payments that we're building into there.
Okay.
So this is the PDF version of a quick little PowerPoint. And as we just received some of our final numbers in that we could book to our revenues and expenditures for 2024, we still are continuing to hit the books with those, working through journal entries, which will happen for probably the next 2 or 3 months. But for the most part, in general fund, we're fairly complete, and I feel comfortable putting these numbers out. There'll be a few little changes, but not too many to make the material difference in the fund. So looking at the year-end figures for the general fund, we projected a beginning balance of about $8.1 million. And so that's what and this is only the unreserved fund balances, does not include the restricted reserves such as the opioid settlements. It was the treasury funds also included in there. There's the PEG fees, affordable housing, we track into a different special revenue fund. Right. So that's tracked a little separately. This is the PEG, the public government channel broadcasting. So we have a few of these reserve funds in there. So when we're looking at the 2024 budget versus actual figures, the good news is we plan to use about almost $2.3 million in reserves to balance this budget. What actually happened is we came in with revenues of more about 1.2 million, a little under $1.2 million. So the good news is we budget very conservatively, and we're not using those reserves this year, which helps us move forward. And actually, when we're talking about carryover coming forward, my recommendations in working with council would be this will help us not to go out for depths or some of these projects that we have planned, such as the waterfront boardwalk, possibly the police car. So I'm putting those little interest in you of some of these things that we can now use these funds one-time savings for. I will also say it's a very good picture when we're going out to debt for the PERC, the future PERC, as well as some of these projects, because that will help our bond ratings. We have a very high bond rating for the city, so that will help us maintain it. We talked to our bond underwriter, advisors, and they said it'll be pretty tough because we're a very small city and we're very highly rated right now to bring that up, but there is a possibility with some of these reserve levels we have. So that's the good news.
Yeah, so just from that standpoint, yes, it's great that our revenues exceeded expenses for last year. And, in general, we should be trying to keep those things about balanced so that we bring in resources from the community, we reinvest them back in our community. As we look this, this is almost a 20% swing from what we budgeted, $3.4 million. I would appreciate a structured approach as we go into this from standpoint of how if we end up into a mid-year budget review, that we look at it as more encompassing and it's not 2 or 3 items this week, 2 or 3 items that week, from the standpoint of going forward, where we might want to potentially invest.
And that I agree is the best laid plans where we can weigh everything out. So that's a great idea. Great strategy. So then here are where some of the items that why our revenues came in a little bit. I like to highlight some of the areas that are specific. So our taxes came in, and we talked about the sales tax, about $172,000, our projection. And what was surprising to me is our utility taxes were significantly higher than we projected. And part of that is our electricity tax has the higher months in December. So when we track through the year, it looks like we're tracking on stat, and then we get December's in. And I also know personally my utility bills have significantly increased, which yes. So your rate increases have also brought up those revenue streams. Yes. And so utility taxes were almost $400,000 over projection. And I will say last year, utility taxes were slightly over, but nowhere near this $400,000. Development fees, we continue to see some of these one-time fees. So if we add all of those together and look at them all, they're about $480,000 over projection. One very one-time fund is Knoll Road's budgets for the portion we just finished is when we get the money in from the TIB, they span it over the entire length of the project and only give us a percentage of that. And so at the very end, when the project's complete, now they complete the whole grant and give it in. So that reflected in about $500,000 related to the roundabout and to the tunnel that we did on Knoll Road. So you will not see those revenues coming forward in future years. And that really is a one-time anomaly. Park and Rec funds, as we've heard from our Park and Rec director, is they are very strong in building new programs, and it's very reflected in their revenues. And they also allowed them to increase their expenditures to support those growing programs. So that is a great enhancement for our
A
community.
very good rebuild from the pandemic-induced flatline.
Correct, yeah. And I'm getting at the point I'm going to be able to go take those senior citizens exercise classes. So I'll enjoy that. There you go. I always need it. And so, yeah. So then also this, for the first time in many, many years, we're actually seeing stronger fines and forfeiture numbers. I know that you have fully staffed your police department, which is very helpful for them to be able to patrol. And it's, it should not be a revenue generator, but what that shows is you're promoting safety in your community and holding people accountable. And also we received the first couple months of your traffic cameras that you've put up on Viking Avenue. Investment earnings, we are very conservative in our investment earnings. And the reason for that is we have come in before where it's unrealized investment earnings and gains, and it's taken it way down. We have a very strong portfolio right now. And the good news is we've been buying long-term investments, which normally you would, when the rates are high, you're only going to get out a year or two. And we have some going out almost 2 years, 3 years. So when we coming forward in the future, I will bring our investment advisor and they can come and talk about our portfolio, but they're very helpful in strategizing that. So even when we see our interest rates dropping in future years, we still have some fairly good investment earnings. And also reminding you, part of these earnings is made up of the general fund does the work of investing for proprietary funds, all of our funds, the real estate excise tax. So if all of those revenues grow and stay in the reserves, we're able to invest those in the general fund. It collects a fee for doing those for those other funds. Yes.
Debbie, I haven't looked at it recently, but is some of our longer papers still primarily the government agency mortgage-backed securities?
We're almost all treasury and agencies, and it kind of goes back and forth. And I'm trying to remember where the latest strategy is. I believe it's primarily in treasuries, and now it's starting to switch a little. But we'll bring that forward when we
Fannie Mae's, Freddie Mac's, and the rest.
So. we're very diversified and I do appreciate working with our investment advisor because that is not an area of expertise and I'm very conservative and I don't even like to spend more than $5 when I go to bet on horses. So personal things. So we maintain conservatism. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, $5 to show is my big bet, right? Opioid funds, these are dollars that have come in from the settlements. These are very restricted. We're putting these into our restricted revenues. We received 2 or 3 settlements in 24, and I believe that they're working with the HHH, and she has developed programs on how to expend those and put those back into her program. Looking at some of the expenditures where we're seeing some of the areas to highlight, our legal audit fees were a little bit less than we anticipated. We did not have to do a full single audit last year. We did what they call, it's a little bit alternative audit. And so that saves us some money in audit costs. And we built in the budget for that. I will say is probably in 25, our 24 reports, we are going to be having a single audit this year. So we're just going through those numbers. Kitsap 911, they actually must have worked with their board and they came back with a revision mid-year and lowered the city's costs that the cities are supporting Kitsap 911. The traffic cameras, we only implemented 1 out of the 3 that we intended, and I think you received notice. So those are spanning over, and those dollars will be carried over into 25 to support those ongoing contractual costs. HHH is funded primarily on grants, and so some of those professional services and grants to support that program will roll over to 25. So you're seeing savings now, but we're going to roll it over into the budget and bring the grant revenues with that.
Which, by the way, I'm going to steal Kim's thunder, but we just received word this afternoon that we got another $200,000 grant from the healthcare authority,
So,
which is we didn't even apply for it.
Well,
No, we didn't.
they had some additional resources as I understand it, and then a member of, or an employee of the HCA came out, toured the recovery cafe, a couple weeks ago, and were able to dedicate some additional funding.
Yeah, it's making a difference, and people higher up the food chain than us are noticing it and helping us pay for it, which is really nice.
The good news is we had budgeted very conservative, planning to use the affordable housing dollars that you delegated towards mental health. And so this grant will help us maintain those funds in affordable housing. So that's great news. Yes.
You mentioned the traffic cameras got spread out. Do we know when the one at Bond and 305 is going to go in?
Don't know about the one at Bond and 305, but the Knoll Road one went live today. Okay, so they're in the testing phase. And this is kind of out of our control. This is the consultant who I think everybody in the world is asking for these traffic safety cameras right now. So I don't have any word on do you have any here? We don't have anything on 305 yet.
I think the Highway 305 and the bond is also dependent, isn't it also dependent on PSC? They've been working with PSC.
PSC and the state both.
The state both, yeah.
Yeah.
And they are becoming very popular. I just heard on the news that the Washington State Patrol is thinking about implementing them on our state, on the highways.
On the highways, yeah.
So,
really?
Yeah.
so yes.
I think I saw something maybe on our Facebook page or website somewhere that we started issuing fines on the Knoll Road
Yeah.
today, the first day, I believe.
I think
Or
it's.
warnings,
It's
I'm
the
sorry,
warning.
warnings.
Yeah, the
30
warning.
days warning.
30
period.
days.
Thank
yeah.
you, Rob. 30 days warning.
There was a public notice that was put out today. I saw it come through my email. So the jail costs, as we've been talking about for quite a while, they're much lower in the last several years over where they have been in the past. And so we actually decreased that budget quite a bit going forward in 2025. And so we didn't spend it this year, but we also are reflected in the new budget coming forward. Yes.
Can I just make a clarification? Right. The cost per night at the jail is not going down.
No.
That
it's
continues to
going
go up, but our
significantly up.
sending people to stay overnight in the jail has
I
gone
think
down.
it's 240 a night.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear when you said.
Oh,
jail
yeah,
costs were going
it's
down. Just-
significantly higher
our
than what we
use
get
of
to
it is going
negotiate
up.
it.
Quick clarification.
Right.
Costs are.
Yes.
But
Yes.
our utilization is down.
Our utilization, but the cost of operating the jail is up, yeah.
I remember it went north of 90 and we were so upset, we started sending some prisoners to Forks to save money. Remember that?
And I think we still do have that ability. Forks has the ability to only accept, they're very picky about who they accept. They're not going to take your higher challenging people, and they also take them for longer term, but the rate at Forks is probably a quarter of what the Kitsap County rates are, so.
Do we know, that was another bill, and I haven't really seen anything about it. Representative Simmons was talked about filing a bill that would have essentially allowed Medicare or Medicaid to reimburse some of our jail healthcare costs this session. And I don't know that, I haven't seen anything or heard anything about whether it went forward or it's done anything.
I haven't heard anything, but that would be.
'Cause that's a lot
That
of-
would be a big help to the cost.
Yeah, a significant chunk of our costs are healthcare costs.
Because, yeah, I think there's some federal regulations on what they'll pay for and what they won't when you come to Medicaid. And I know that there's been a couple years where we've had some pretty expensive medical bills that we don't have too much control. But I do know our municipal court and our police department are very active with the jail in deciding who goes there and trying to maybe limit the stays to keep our costs down. So
Yeah,
I don't know if the chief
if I
can answer
remember-
better than I can.
If I remember right,
Hopefully-
it was our ledge dinner. She talked about it, and it was essentially there was a change the state had to make, which would then allow us to access the federal funds. And I don't know that I've heard anything about it.
So yes, they actually did implement what's called an 1115 waiver, which is what, it's that Medicaid component from the federal government. And so it allows, they were able to submit that so it could pay for up to 90 days of the last 90 days of someone's incarceration, but it specifically sets them up to have medications and access to care upon their release. So that went into effect, but a lot of we'll call them residents that are staying in the jails are there for less than 90 days or even much less than that. So they've been working out a lot of the logistics of actually how to make that beneficial to the local jurisdictions.
No, but that's a great way to continue to help keep our costs down because there is no insurance reimbursements for those. Emergency preparedness, we started later in the year, and so we haven't expended as much as we anticipated, but that is an ongoing program. And then our indirect allocation, that is the charge that we put in the general fund that we're charging our utilities for providing service. So for instance, when we do our utility billing, we pay that person out of general fund and we charge the utilities for that level of service. And as we've grown our general fund and some of our expenses and our personnel, we actually reduce some of our costs in general fund. Unfortunately, it did get passed on to your utility funds, but that did come back into savings to the general fund. So, what I had in there is your sales tax report, your year-end real estate excise tax, and your general fund revenue and expenditure reports. And what I did include is because that was the quickest way to get you numbers strictly out of our accounting system. So let me stop sharing. And I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about what those reports are. It looks like a whole bunch of numbers, and that's exactly what it is. So this is, let me share it so you can see what I'm seeing. So this is what we refer to as our general fund revenue status report, and this is something that I view quite regularly. This is your line item detail of every revenue in the general fund. And so the first column is what we have in their budget. So you can see, and that's where if you wanted to get into that line item detail, we try not to, we try to summarize it, but I wanted to get you some information of what we're looking at, just because at the year end, we're crunching out numbers and can't get those specialized reports prepared for you. So the first column is our budget. Period receipts don't really mean too much to you, but this is just how the report comes out. We'll never have receivables in general fund because we don't track it and use the system that way. Year to date is the figures that we're looking at. Available balance is the difference between your budget and what you've received year to date. And then the year to date budget, this is the percentage status. So if you look at, for instance, our real estate excise tax, our real estate property tax, we received in 99% of what we budgeted. Local sales and use tax, we received in about 3% of what we budgeted. So that's what those last figures are. And these are broken out in categories. So these, the first group is your total taxes. The next, and these are all defined by the Washington State Auditors Accounting Standards, what we call the BARS, Budget and Reporting Systems Report. All of our reports are defined this way, and this allows us to upload them, and you can do comparables to other cities and agencies. So these are linked in those categories. So the first one is your taxes. The next ones are your license and permits. The next intergovernmental revenues, we're going to see most of your variances, and that's because that's where all of our federal grants are, or federal, state, local grants, all of those. This also has in there our liquor profits and liquor excise tax that are state shared revenues coming. And then goods and services, these are our charges for services that we usually can relate directly to a service that we're providing. Fines and forfeitures. And then we get down to, here's our miscellaneous revenue. So when I said you can see our investment earnings are much higher than what we projected. We did bump up those revenue projections in 25. However, it's not as high as what we collected. And so we'll continue to do that. And then the bottom category is just some of those miscellaneous items that come in. These are transfers in. We don't transfer much into the general fund, so those won't be very much. When we go through city surplus process, this is where we're putting in the money that we collect for some of those when we sell those items. So you can see the total budget for the general fund, $15.4 million. And I did not include the beginning balance on this because that shows up that would make us look variables a little bit different because we don't record actual beginning balances on this revenue report. And so then the $17.8 million. And that was included in your package just to give you some. Yes.
No, I just wanted to note, I mean, of all this, the one line item that stood out to me is the B&O tax, being that it's new, 20, almost 24,000 over, but pretty close to what you budgeted. So it seems like that's tracking pretty close to the anticipated. I just want to confirm that I read that right. And that
you are correct. And that number will fluctuate a little bit because we are continuing to receive some B&O tax for the first 2 quarters that we're trying to collect. We budgeted conservatively 400,000 because we are at half a year and we figured it would take some time. The last quarter you're going to receive more because of all the annual filers, which brings it in. But in 25, if you remember, we budgeted $1 million. And in 26, we budgeted 1.1 million. And as we're collecting these, we're trying to get this under category. And I know specifically that the council member Newell would like us to come back and talk about our B&O process and where we're and what the process is and trending with the revenues. And so once we get up to date figures, we'll come back and let you know where we're at and what we're still trying to plug through.
Yeah, and thank you for remembering. It's just really, hey, we implemented it. How's it working? Is there ways to make it work better for our community?
Well, one of the things is,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to name names, but some of our large, what I say corporate businesses have still not filed. So we're still waiting.
We have reached out, we got them on the phone, we thought everything was fine and some of these larger, and they're just,
It's not
yeah, and then they're
surprising.
just, there's,
Yep.
well, and they're such corporate companies, they're used to paying these items everywhere. But the problem is they're so siloed with where their businesses are. And so we are trying to get our contact information to the accounting office that actually would turn in these taxes. And so the good news is Poulsbo has a revenue sharing agreement that we've signed on with several of the cities. And so we use those resources and we've been trying to get those. And I know that the Gretchen in our office is continually, we just send them another letters, but it's not just one, it's a couple of them.
Mhm.
And so you'll see those revenues increase a little bit, but
Okay.
that's part of implementation and we expected that.
Yeah, and when we had that conversation, and I don't know, it may be too soon to visit it, but I know when this was first discussed before many of us were on the council, a lot of the discussion was around the caps and what was the appropriate level. And the end answer was kind of, it was a target, but it wasn't necessarily, we weren't sure what the target should be. When we have the follow-up that Doug asked for, would that be too soon to look at those caps and see if we hit the mark, miss the mark? Or is that something that we should still wait a bit on?
I think that's part of it, is to kind of understand what's the 80-20 rule. Where's the majority coming from? How many small filers do we have? All right, Rick, it's really what do we think? Might want to pause through this year, but it might be something to go, you know what? We got some folks that are kicking in $100 a year. Does it make sense for their costs to submit it? Compared to the big guys that are chipping in, I don't know, 100,000 a year.
It could be that we could
Yeah.
alter those things, but right now, as I said, we have some very large corporate players that haven't even responded yet. So we don't know exactly where we are yet.
And I will say that right now, it's just part of it being new and trying to understand all the rules and regulations with it, is Poulsbo is a little bit more generous than some of our neighbors, because what I had misunderstood is the model ordinance says, if we have your minimum set at $20,000, once you hit that $20,000, you no longer get an exemption. You pay the B&O back to zero, all the way up to what you've earned, and the same with retail tax. And so we've written ours a little differently, and we let them take that exemption before they pay their B&O tax. So that is where we're a little bit better. But what I think, I know that we'll talk about B&O later, but just for most of the confusion is the local B&O tax is so much different than the rules for the state B&O tax. And that's where, and I understandably so, because if I were doing my taxes for the business, it's confusing. Unfortunately, these are the laws that are in place, and we don't have the option to change some of those items. But I will say that is where most of the confusion has come from. And it's
State government.
right. And but that's where most of the confusion has come from. And unfortunately, those are led by the big cities like Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, and Olympia, who are very strongly dependent on their B&O tax. And so that's where those rules are set up. But they set them up and they made them standardized because of the small businesses. And so they continue to listen to this. And they are also under the requirement to revisit what they call the model B&O, business and occupation tax module. And so they always are constantly reviewing it. So.
Okay, yeah, and I definitely don't want to have that conversation too early, because then we could end up just seesawing back and forth. But I also did hear the state legislator talking about potentially increasing the state B&O. So if, it's something we definitely should have on our radar, that if we need to raise the limit to not hurt our small businesses, because I definitely heard that in the conversation when this was all being discussed, is we weren't trying to we didn't want to hurt the small businesses. We wanted this targeted the right place. So I think it's just all should be part of the conversation, that if we need to adjust to help balance out what the state's doing, we should be looking at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more that's in your packet, and it's just a very quick, this is your same item that you've seen. This is the expenditure side of general fund only. And so these are broken out and totaled by departments. And so you can see your object levels, and again, your budget, your period expenditures, encumbrances outstanding. Most likely you will not see this on a year-end report. Encumbrances outstanding means we have issued a purchase order, and we have encumbered or obligated ourselves to pay out that full purchase order. And so it's showing you what we've obligated ourselves to. At the end of the year, we clear all those out and roll those over. Year-to-date expenditures, again, your balance is what you've budgeted, less what you've expended, and what's the balance left over. If it's negative, it means you've went over budget, and if it's under, you're under the budget. And we look at all of these budgets bottom line by departments. And again, here's your percentages of what you expended compared to what your budget. So I would just wanted to give you a little explanation of these reports that are in your packet, if anybody was chance to look at. And that is all I have for the general fund. And we're continuing to work on getting the year end closed. And what comes with this year end is we posted all these revenues, and then in January we have to reverse them all. And so that's why we're still working on our January and February numbers. Yes.
Debbie, off the top of your head, if we were looking at a variance report, does anything strike you that we should be aware of, a line item or two, or are things pretty much in line with what we projected?
Items are fairly close within line, but that's why I picked out at the very first on the PowerPoint slides showing where some of those variances are. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll continue to do that, come up in March with the March quarterlies and look at those reports and see what those variances are, because we do try to track those and see, where we're at and do some adjustments if need to be.
City's healthy. Okay, city's healthy. Is that it? Good job, Deb. Thank you very much. Okay, and for the final show tonight is Rhiannon Fernandez.
Comfortable with me. I meant to do this hours ago.
I don't want, let's wait. until we do that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Council. One more item. Yeah. So in your agenda packet, we had updated ordinance 2023-02 where we changed discharge dates for fireworks, but we failed to look at the dates of sale. TNT Fireworks has been coming to the city clerks asking when they can sell fireworks, and they're wanting to sell it the last week of December, which isn't in line when we allow them to discharge it. So we're recommending to be in line with the county dates of sale to remove July 5th and then December 27th through 31st to be in line with Kitsap County and align with the discharge dates.
That's it. Are we okay?
I
Consent
think that's a
agenda?
great idea.
Okay.
And I want to remind the viewing public that we intend to put a vote on the November ballot to ask the public if we should ban them entirely. So folks need to pay attention and let us know what they want.
Great. I'll put this on next week's consent agenda for your approval. Thank you.
It's fine. It's fine. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to continued questions and concerns of the council. Other than being hungry, although I ate peanuts. How about you?
It's just a quick update. It's the end of the night and won't try to belabor this, but as we get through the comprehensive plan, part of the capital facilities plans, one element of that is ours. Another piece is fire's looking at needing some impact aid. Another piece is school district. Schools, I think if most of us aware, are declining enrollment, unfortunately. A lot of that's being driven by the fact that I just was looking at Kitsap County over the past 30 years, the number of people over 65 went from 10% of the population to 20%. And the number of pre-K is gone from 8% to 5%. But we had I'm part of the facilities committee up here at North, had a healthy discussion with the school board a couple of weeks ago, and they've asked the facilities committee to look out 20 years to try to get a handle on what's going on. There is a lot of currently empty space on both the North Kitsap High School campus and the Kingston High School campus. And so they're going to be taking a hard look at how do they rationalize what's there and try to go forward. So I say that out loud from the standpoint of it is a community asset. We have participated before as a city in investing in the fields up there and using those, but it is an ongoing piece of action that's out there and trying to figure out, the future. So it's part of our planning.
The campus is huge up there.
It is. It's absolutely huge.
And yeah, it's absolutely huge.
And
So,
I think you're going to see them come out with a campus plan of how to best use that campus in the future.
anything?
Yeah, and well, and the two high schools is an ongoing conversation. I won't give my opinion because it would make me very unpopular. I mentioned the BI ad hoc meeting. I think we're also overdue for a Suquamish tribal ad hoc. We haven't, we had our dinner, but we haven't had a quarterly meeting with the tribal council, so we should probably get that.
They're having their elections this week, so we should probably let the dust settle
let
on
the
all
dust-
that,
Yeah.
but circle back in a month or two.
Usually takes us a couple of months to get it arranged, so, yeah, but I was just thinking about that when I saw the tribal elections. I thought we haven't had a meeting. We should probably get that on the books, so just that was a thought.
Okay, anything else? Okay, future agenda items, Rhiannon, anything? Okay, continued comments.
Mayor, I had one question on
Yeah.
that. Looking out future agenda items, under staff requested by staff and mayor, solid waste discussion May with Diane. I'm assuming that's primarily going to be about the keep the service or not. Are we also going to be discussing then the public works facility as part of that conversation? Or if not, when are we going to bring back conversation about the new public works facility?
The sequence that we have in mind is that we're going to do an analysis, a financial analysis for solid waste. We'll bring the results of that analysis to council. And then based on council's direction, we will take a second look at the utilities based on any scenarios you want us to consider as it relates to solid waste. And then once those items are done, we plan to bring the Public Works facility back. If you want any other updates on modified or reduced plans for Public Works facility, we're happy to do that as well.
Okay, yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of it because as I mentioned earlier, the longer we let these projects go, the more expensive they get. So I don't want to lose sight for multiple reasons because we want Mike's staff all in one place, because we want the farmer's market to have a home, because we don't want the mechanic flooded by the stream.
Hear you. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other, so we're gonna move into continued comments, public comments. Any public comments? Hey, Judge, how are you? You can come you can go wherever you want, Judge.
I was walking down the street from the court office, my pants split. I'll retire after 31 years as municipal court judge, and I just wanted to come and personally thank you for your part in this extraordinary journey and opportunity. I know many of you know I like to write, and so I put together, if anybody wants them, Rhiannon can shred what they don't, about 10 or 11 stories that I'd written during my tenure as judge. And one of them was my first day as judge. After my first day as judge on April 7th, 1994, I wrote a piece called From Douglas to Limbaugh, My First Day as Judge, about how you start so liberal and optimistic, and they're all good. They're all going to have at least 2 miracles. And then you need William O. Douglas on your other shoulder to say, well, maybe they need some behavior modification. So we start with my first day as judge, and then there's one that goes to my last day as judge. My 10-year anniversary, I wrote a piece about my tenure, first 10 years as the judge, and that would have been 2005. And at the time, I noted that with parking tickets and everything, I'd handled about 28,000 cases. I have no idea how many it would be after 31 years. The main lesson I've learned on these years is how extraordinarily fortunate I and many of us in this room were to have well-centered, loving, moral, decent parents. I have had the obligation and responsibility and really opportunity to see folks who have not. I remember well, just thinking of a couple of them, a gentleman who completed a 2-year agreement, but I never thought he would. And as I was dismissing the case, I said, Mr. Jones, I'm so proud of you and I have so much respect of you. I've never would have guessed you'd make this. And he dropped like a rock and he was sobbing. And when he got up, I said, did I say something to bother you? I'm really sorry. And he said, Judge, I'm 43 years old. You're the first person that has ever said they were proud of me or respected me. Not Bob and Frida Tolman. On the other hand, I've seen, we had a grandma who was actively teaching, you could see on the surveillance video, her grandchildren how to steal at a business in Poulsbo. She casually got caught, came in, pled guilty, and I thought a lot about what she could say to justify this. And I stayed up much of the night trying to figure out what she would tell me. And she told me the one thing I'd never thought of. I said, ma'am, I'm a grandfather, I'm a father, I try to be a role model. This makes no sense to me. Can you make sense out of it for me? And she said, the one thing I'd never thought. She said, do we have to have all this chatter or can we just get to the sentencing? And I said, no more question marks, an exclamation point or two, but no more question marks. And again, when you're raised in that kind of environment, many folks just don't have the chances that we do. People think municipal court is a bunch of boring traffic tickets. And this is no joke. I handled a no contact order hearing, a little trial between Poulsbo's Santa Claus and somebody who stood across the street with a bullhorn, traumatizing children by arguing to them that there was no Santa Claus and they were going to burn in hell if they believed in him. That was not a boring hearing. You know, we had, you have people who don't think it out. We had a gentleman try to steal a 10-pound salmon at Central Market by putting it down his pants and walking out. And And when I said to him, I said, explain this to me, and he said, oh, I forgot. Now you have the opportunity as a judge to sometimes take away people's dignity, and you really try not to do that. So I had to say to him, I said, sir, I have no personal experience. I have never even had a brook trout down my pants. But my impression is that this would be very, very difficult to forget. We had a 4-day prostitution trial in Poulsbo, which was you had dynamics and a jury and people watching. But Poulsbo Municipal Court's going through an extraordinarily exciting time. I asked today, and with the 1-speed camera, we're getting between 15 and 20 tickets a day. The Knoll Road is anticipated to bring in more. Certainly Highway 305 and Bond Road, you're going to see just a lot of activity in court. The impending population growth is going to have a significant impact. And on the good side, the resource center is just a godsend. It is just wonderful that we can send people. Verna Lisa's in court every Thursday, and it has given us a tool that we've never had before, and it's extraordinary, and it's going to help lots of people. My time on the bench covered 4 mayors, 8 police chiefs or interim chiefs, dozens of private lawyers, thousands of defendants, and virtually all of them have left a mark on me. And my Uncle Vern used to say, everybody's good for something. If nothing else, they can be used as a bad example. And there have been some bad examples in Poulsbo, but there's also seen redemption and change that makes it all worthwhile. It's going to be odd not having work. My first job was a 15-year-old picking pickles on Keith Austin's farm up the Snake River from Asokan, and this would be new territory. But one of the officers asked me today, how do you feel about your job terminating? And I thought about it for a minute, and I don't feel it's that way at all. It's like camp coming to an end. If you stop thinking about camp, you come to a camp and you meet lots of new people. You make lifelong friends. You explore, change, and you grow up together. You share your ups and downs. You learn from your new friends, and you leave camp different than when you went. And for years and years, you look back on camp, smile, and happy with the relationships and experiences you were able to have. Thank you. Here's these.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, mayor and council comments, anything? If not, let's just go up to, we have an executive session for probably not even 10 minutes. Second floor, probably 5 minutes? 7? Yeah. And we will be adjourning out of the executive
So
session.
move to adjourn out of executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.